and for showing up for another episode of Well and Worthy Life. I'm so glad to have you back here with me.
I'm excited. Are you kidding? I love any time with you. So a little bit
Well,
different with like the camera. This is a little bit different. Last time it was just our voices.
Exactly. Well, so they'll be on YouTube too, so which is really cool.
Okay, cool.
So anyway, but yeah, I love seeing your face, even though you're in Florida and I'm in here in Birmingham. At least the sun is shining here in Birmingham. I'm sure it's shining in Florida.
It is, but it's actually cold. It was 40 this morning, so it's like only 50 outside, which is like really like awesome, like holiday weather for us.
Yeah. Oh, that is nice. Well, so where should we pick up? I mean, there's so many things you and I talked about last time about your divorce and where, and how tough that was. And so, you and I both, I've been through 2 divorces. You don't want to go there. So, and you've gotten your health coaching certification. I know you're busy with doing that, which is very exciting. And as you're doing that, I'm sure you're even learning more and more about yourself, right?
Oh my gosh, 100%. I think since we spoke last, I hadn't launched. I was just about to launch Enough
That's
Wellness.
right.
I launched it on my birthday this past year, August 30th. And I kind of feel like since then, I've learned so much from my clients. And I think it's funny. Sometimes the advice I'm giving them, like I'm learning that I'm not even doing it like in my own life. So I feel like that's probably one of the biggest lessons. But then the second, biggest lesson that I'm learning just from them is just how all of us women are so similar, and how we all literally, want a lot of the same things and need a lot of the same things to feel loved and to feel whole. So I have, I have like 10 clients right now, and it's been probably the most incredible, 6 months. Some of them are about to finish their 6 months, and then some of them are 3 months. They're all at different stages coming in, just because I've signed on people just like randomly in the past, 6 months. But it really has been such a ride, but just really, really incredible, truly.
Yes, I think when you coach people, you do a lot of times we attract what we are and what we need, and then we can help them as we're helping ourselves. And it doesn't mean that as health coaches we're perfect by any stretch of the imagination. We're going through, we have our own journey. So let's talk about your journey.
I totally agree. I think like sometimes when I'm talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was like really good. Like I need to do that to myself, only because of just, the school itself, of course. But I feel like the tools that this particular program gives is just so incredible. And I think, I've noticed a lot of my clients have felt the same way that I felt right after my divorce. And they felt just like stuck. So I felt stuck for a very long time. And once you feel stuck, you almost, and I tell my clients all of this, you feel like you're like in that groove. And granted, it might be like a pretty dark groove, but it's like weirdly comfortable, and like you're okay with staying there. And that's where other people have their opinions. Like you should way be past this divorce by now, or you should be over this grief of whatever happened, but I think it really comes to you realizing, okay, I'm stuck. I have a choice to remain here, or I have a choice to like literally crawl myself out. And I think dependent upon the circumstance and the brokenness, that's what you have to do. You have to make choices. And I feel that with my clients, I've noticed their first step is them reaching out to me or us getting in touch. And that is their first like one crawl forward, so I honor that so much, because I know that it isn't easy and it's scary.
Yeah, I definitely think you have to we are given the ability to make a choice. And I think that's what people feel like, they don't have any choices. I know that for years when I was married to my first husband, I felt like I didn't have a choice. I didn't feel like I had choices. I didn't know that I could make choices. But we all have a choice no matter what we do, whether we have a choice to stay in a bad marriage or not stay in a bad marriage, or we have a choice to stay in grief when something bad happens, or we can choose to find the meaning or the joy in it or whatever. And there's bad things, and this year has been a hard year.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think that just piggybacks on anyone that's going through a difficult time, whether it be like grief from losing someone, God forbid, or grief from the capacity where I know it, and a lot of my clients have been through it as well, which is divorce. And I think they parallel each other, and I've lost people. So I know what grief is, but I definitely think they're on different scales, and the gratitude of them, or the gravity of them, excuse me, it is so different. But I think the reason that it parallels is because, like we talked about this the last time in our last podcast, that it almost is like that person's family is just out of your life. And I think it depends on how the divorce or how the marriage crumbled, but then, if you were close with the family, that's like another grief. And I think around this time of year, I definitely start to go a little bit more inward, and, still knowing that I'm in a different spot and I'm in a lot happier spot. Granted, it's still heavy, but I feel that now I have the tools to take a second, acknowledge those feelings, let them come to the surface, feel them, and then kind of sort through them and keep going forward, and not let them rule me. And that's what they did for so long, because I was just in such a really bad spot. I was depressed. I never got on anything, which I look back now, I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but it's not even like I was wallowing in it. I didn't know what else to do. And I was so overwhelmed by even thinking about making one step forward.
And don't you think, though, the further away you get from the divorce, from, it does get easier. It doesn't make it better. And listen, I got divorced from my first husband in 2006. So I'm 14, 15, almost 15 years.
Wow.
I think it may be 15 years, or maybe 14 years. Anyway, it is easier. I do still think, what if? I do still think that.
Oh,
And
I'm still fresh here. Like, I'm like,
yeah,
I don't even know,
yeah,
like not 3 years, so
right,
I think that it's not that I'm like, you think what if, not if you want to be with that person, but you can't help
right.
like think around the holidays. Okay, I know what we were doing at this time, but I think at this point, what I used to do is I used to try to rush forward and not process those, where I think that that's what was holding me back, essentially. So I think I was in such a numb spot, where I tell a lot of my clients, whether they come to me, whether if it was a divorce or depressed or a miscarriage, that grief, they were just rushing to the next thing. And, we're just living in this fight or flight mode. And that's what I was doing, but now it's sad. It is sad, but it's like a gentle sad, to where I can accept it, because that's not whatever the reality is now. And now I'm taking more time in the present to realize like the beauty of the present, and I'm allowing it to sink in, because I think a
Yeah.
lot of people, like, numb's great. I love being numb, because I'm just like going. I always tell them, and I'm like, okay, but right now you're making it through each day. You should actually be living through each day. And that was like a big shift for me. Like, I was just making it through, which to a certain point you have to. But once you start living, and it doesn't have to be consistent, because some days might be hard and the next might not. But once you start living, like, it feels really good.
Yes. And I think what you said, really, like, sitting there, and like when those moments hit, I'm the world's worst still for myself. Like, so it just became the anniversary of my mother passing away and my stepfather. And I really did sit in that this time. A lot of times I'm just like, go, go, go. I got to do this. And especially around this time of the year, because, the holidays, and now I have a granddaughter. But I did really sit in that and think about how much I did miss my mother, and how much I do miss my stepfather. And I do think that when you sit, then you're not rushing off to just, get past it.
Well, Deanna, you're actually like honoring yourself. And I feel that once you start to honor those emotions, then like your body like thanks you, and it's called reprogramming. And that's a lot what I think is helpful as well, because there's a lot of things we do when we don't even think, that are like unconscious habits, that we do, that naturally it's like, you wake up, you go right to this, and you do this, and then it's 8 p.m. and you're like, have I even taken a breath all day? So I think that's something that I work on a lot with myself, is just right now I'm having to make conscious efforts still to break some habits that used to be comfortable, you know? So I'm reprogramming myself to be like, okay, I call it, like I said, chest breathing. You know, there's a whole big belly that needs a lot of oxygen throughout the day to kind of reset your nervous system. And just, I would just be breathing all through here. And no wonder I couldn't sleep, you know? So it's just this
Right.
big cycle that kind of snowballs. So um, it's definitely been like a wild ride, but like I said, you have to just be so aware of it during the day. And that's kind of like what we were talking about the other day before we talked about doing this, was just how I feel. And tell me if you can relate to this. Whenever you were going through your divorces or like a difficult time, like you grasp on so tightly, like you're trying to control everything, you know? So regardless of whatever it leads to, a lot of with women, I've noticed it, they control their food, they control what they eat. For me, it was like controlling myself through physical activity, which about killed me. And I didn't even realize that I was doing it, you know, but I was squeezing onto it so tightly that every bit of energy was like being poured into that because I wanted to control something because I felt so out of control, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. You know, honestly, I'm trying to think about what I tried to control. I probably tried to control my children, probably more at that point, because that was probably all I could think of. Because you're right. When you're going through all of that, you have no control, right? You have no control whatsoever. And really, here's the thing. We don't have any control anyway of anything.
Yeah. And I think
We
like,
forget that.
once you get through like the tough part, you kind of realize you're like, oh, like that was like very obsessive behavior, but now I understand why we cling to it. Because again, we're in that dark little nook, like I said, and we have our little habits, and they're like okay, but we're not joyful. We don't feel rooted. We don't feel whole. We're chest breathing, you know. And I was just pouring so much into things that honestly drained my energy, Deanna, and they never gave me back anything. And that was relationships that I noticed. Number one, relationships in that time, you know, you see really who steps up and who drains you and who doesn't, you know, so then you just kind of like shift naturally. And I think if you do that, then it's just almost like you're protecting your energy. I like to call them
Yes.
energy savers and energy drainers. And you just kind of can make a list mentally that just doesn't feel right to me anymore. And I don't know why I never put a boundary up to that relationship or a boundary up to this, but it hurts me. So it drains me. So I kind of just step away from it. So I think there's so much beauty that can come, beauty from ashes, beauty from the brokenness. But I think you just have to keep making those conscious steps to get to that point to even see the light. And that's what can get exhausting. And that's what can be overwhelming, especially Deanna, if you're doing it alone. And that's kind of where I step in and where you've stepped in too with your health coaching. I mean, we help these women primarily, that's like my niche, you know, break these habitual, comfortable habits.
Yeah. And get out of their comfort zone, because a lot of times it may look like a healthy habit, right? Working out. But anything obsessive, compulsive is not healthy. And we need more balance in our life, right? And balance in relationships and friendships, right? Because when you said that about learning about those people that will drain you, energy drainers, that was one of the main things I guess I learned in my divorce too. I had to break up a friendship, and oh my gosh, it felt so horrible. It was awful. But I intentionally, and I was very intentional about it. I was like, I cannot, and I told her, I said, I cannot be around you anymore.
Yeah.
I don't feel good when I'm around you. I don't feel good when I walk away from you. This isn't good for me. And
It's funny though to like think is because you were like in that marriage and you were like inundated with all of those relationships or whatever. And then that's where I sometimes think like, would I still be in that numb spot? Because I think obviously that I look back now, I know that everything happened the way it was supposed to, but still I'm just like, you know, like was I supposed to be broken so I feel what I feel now? Because I've never felt more myself than I do right now in my life. And I'm 36, I'm divorced. Stuff is still in boxes from a house that me and it's still weird saying ex-husband Bill. It's still things that like trigger me, and there's still days that are like super heavy. Or Deanna, I'm rooted in Birmingham. I own my like main Pure Bar there, you know, so
Right.
every time I come up there, God, I mean, I get shifted, and I literally have to like pray and pivot and ground so much while I'm there, because it takes over me, because I'm like, that's where we built like our life. And it's crazy, but I mean, it's such a mental thing that I have to do every single time. Like I said, those very conscious mental, um I like to call them safe pockets. I like to create little safe pockets throughout the day where I'm just like, I'm going to take a second here and I'm just going to calm down. Because if I don't do that, I kind of feel that obsessive behavior start to come back. Um,
Oh,
like I said, for me, it was working out.
mhm.
I just, because what it did is I think just, I wasn't even there. I wouldn't even listen to music. Like it would just be, my mind was so flooded and my body was like moving, but I didn't even feel it moving. But now, like when I'm working out, I like receive it, if that makes sense. Like I like
Mhm.
feel it, and I'm like, oh, like I'm killing myself. Or I'm just doing one Pure Barre class, you know, that I'm exhausted for the rest of the day, and that's how it should be. But I just didn't. I didn't know. I didn't know, and someone could have been telling me that, Lindsay, you're literally teaching a class, taking a class, and then like going for a really long walk, and then maybe like doing another walk that night. That's a little crazy, but I was actually alone. You know, people probably maybe thought that, but I was alone, like in a house by myself, you know, and I couldn't, I felt crazed. I felt crazed. So I think that
You felt
movement.
like you had to do to make it go away, right? Because if you were busy, then it's almost like you're running. I heard somebody say, and I don't think this is for all runners, but somebody who's an obsessive runner, what are they running away from? You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Hell, if I
you're
was
in
a
constant motion, then you can never sit and feel. And our bodies aren't made for that. We're made to listen to, meditation is one of the biggest things that can change us more than anything.
oh, and I agree. And I mean, I think, yeah, and then there's injuries that I have like in my body from like, it was more like a year, like where I just was doing crazy stuff. Like
Mhm.
I've like permanently damaged my wrists and stuff, you know, and I've hurt my lower back because I was just so unaware. And I think being present, like you said, has so much to do with being healthy as a whole. And that's like mentally healthy and then like physically healthy also. But of course, you know, health coaching, like we kind of said at the beginning, is just help me pivot that.
Mhm.
And I think
Right, right.
time with women and sitting down and kind of doing what we're doing right now, this feeds your soul. And so I think some days it's not, I think some of the women have to be like, all right, I'm about to talk to Lindsay, you know, but I just try to create a safe pocket there with them because I know how they're feeling because they've been so vulnerable with me. And that's where the word honor steps up every single time when I think about these women, because they're showing up on a FaceTime for a full hour, you know, 3 times a month, and they're laying it all out there. And I'm praying to God that I'm able to give them some sound advice, or again, a tool that they can utilize to help reground them, to help them get through whatever they're going through, to get to the other side, you know, and to feel more and to be more present, you know. But I really haven't seen one client not feel that their comeback truly is stronger than their setback, if that makes any sense.
Yes, yeah, I love that. And I think that our comeback is stronger
For
because
sure.
what is it? I mean, if what doesn't kill you makes you stronger,
No,
it
I mean,
does.
for sure. And I think it just gives you more clarity, but it takes that disconnect. It takes that disconnect maybe just 10 minutes through the day. Or I always have my clients, we start always on a nightly ritual. That's like what I get them on, and they have to find that space in their mind, which I wasn't doing. So I completely am compassionate with it and understanding, because if I started to feel that space, that's when I would go for a walk. And nighttime was my hardest time during like the deep dark nights of
Because
my,
you were alone.
I was alone, and
Yeah.
it scared me. It scared me to be alone. And I think literally as like the night fell is literally when my anxiety, and makes like my eyes water, and like, because like it would just rise up to here and I would feel like I'm coming out of my skin, and I would just be like, oh my gosh, like what is happening? So I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna go for a walk, and it's like 8:30 at night. Like, no. And
Right.
that's where I tell them they have to pivot their mind, that, and some of them felt the same way, that like nighttime is so peaceful. It's a time for rest. It's a time, you know. So it was, again, it was about me programming my mind to be like, now it's time to start slowing down, but that has to do with habits too. I mean, I was like really on coffee, Deanna. I was like really on
Oh, yeah.
coffee,
Gosh,
and I
and you
just
know
realized,
what? I see that. I see that a lot. I don't drink any coffee after I have 2 morning cups and that's it. I've learned that, if I try to have coffee in the afternoon, I may occasionally have coffee in the afternoon, but for the most part, I just can't because it does affect my sleep. And
right?
even as you get older, it's even more, more so. I have enough problems sleeping. I don't need caffeine.
Caffeine can like literally relate to like a panic attack. Do you know what I mean? Like you
Mhm.
feel like that, that increase in caffeine and your heart's racing, and it kind of goes hand in hand. And if you're already like in a spot that's kind of fragile, that's just where I, assess that. But I'm not saying I occasionally I'll have like a cup and I can't even finish a full one, but I just like the taste of it, but I don't crave it as much anymore. But that's just more of like a nutritional change that I changed. But I think again, it's more about um making that space, and that takes time to set boundaries, because all of my clients pretty much have a husband and they all pretty much have kids. So you have to create boundaries,
Mhm.
and that's hard. But
It is
there's
hard, but you can do it even with, I've heard people, even with kids. I mean, I think that probably back, when I first got my divorce, I was just trying to just get through every moment. That's why I made bad decisions and I jumped into another marriage again because I was just trying to get through it. I didn't ever spend that time and make that space, like you said. And you can make it with a husband and children. You can.
Oh, for sure. Well, I think we're just rushing forward. And that's what I've been feeling like. Even lately, sometimes I notice myself, I'm going to get to this next, or I'm going to keep going to this next. And then, I look back on these past 6 months since you and I've talked, and I'm like, I'm trying to get to this next, but like, look at all of that in between. Like, you can have
Oh,
goals, but like, let's stop rushing forward. Like, we're always trying to almost get there. Like, I'm going to be more healed, or like, I'm going to feel emotionally better, or like, I'm definitely going to be more physically fit, or I'll feel better in my own skin. And that's kind of where enough stepped in. I mean, like at this present moment right now, you are enough. You
yeah.
are, and that's kind of what I have to like reprogram my mind to think like every day, because it's so difficult.
Yeah. Well, and just like you said, we need to stop and think, look how far we've come.
I
Look
know.
how far, I don't care if it's you're changing your health habits. I mean, I sat down the other day, I was looking through journals and even thinking about my own just health journey, my own like nutritional. I mean, okay, let's be honest. When I opened Pure Bar with y'all, I drank about 5 Diet Cokes a day. I was secret smoking. I mean, like that is not a
Love
healthy
a closet
person.
smoker, Deanna. Love a closet smoker. I'm just
Like I was not a healthy person.
yeah.
Um, I was trying to live this healthy life, what I thought was healthy, but it wasn't until, honestly, my whole thing about really on my health journey was once I sold Pure Bar and I began to really look at my age and where I was going and how close I was to my own parents' age when my dad died at 59 and my mom got sick at 60. So I
No,
think that though we need to appreciate where we've been and how far we've come, and we still have a ways to go.
I think tons of changes that happen like emotionally or nutritionally, it just kind of, for me, it's that I was walled up, Deanna. Like I was so unhealthy, and some of my best friends were just like, you just aren't you. And when someone says that, it's like heartbreaking, and you're like, well, obviously, no, I know that I'm not. Like me and the person I thought I was going to spend truly the rest of my life with, my best friend, or just like a confidant that was just like always my sidekick since I was 23, isn't there anymore. So crutch, peg, whatever he was, like he was there, his family was there, the comfortable layer was there, the support canopy was there for me. So once that's ripped from you, I think you have to kind of rediscover yourself. And I think that's such an empowering thing for women to do, as opposed to an overwhelming thing. But again, like I was saying, I think there's a big difference. And I always like to bring light to this. There's such a big difference, Deanna, between a boundary and a wall. like I was walled. So literally I was in this wall, and I think I was walled in my marriage, you know, I mean, it takes two. And I know that there was a huge percentage of what I was doing. Like I wasn't able to give fully because of where I was emotionally. And that just makes me like sick sometimes. Like I just got chills again over my body because it's unfair, you know, but I didn't know. I didn't know. And I was throwing myself into other things, work primarily, but I was just in this wall and nothing could penetrate it. And I really couldn't get anything through it. So it took the divorce, and I wish it didn't happen the way that it happened, God forbid, because I would never wish that on someone that I hated. But I think it took that for me to understand that I was so walled. I was in this little walled city by myself, and I wasn't happy. So I think now I'm creating boundaries, which are like so healthy. And I never have had those. Like I've actually, because I'm a yes person, and I'll do this until I'll give you this until you feel complete and I'm empty, or, you know, so now it's just figuring out that a lot of women actually do that, because I feel that one, our capacity is enough, but also two, we have a lot on our shoulders. Like we have a lot of expectation.
Mhm. Oh, I think that is so true. So, so true. I think that, yeah, I just,
Even with you and I, like, you know me, and like, you know, when you first met me, granted, I was just like a fresh little pup with Danielle, but I'm like, Christ, it's still though, that was me. And I think that you saw the transition, you saw the shift, and, you know, like you saw me harden. And I think circumstantially you do that, you're defensive whenever something's not right, whenever someone's about to hit you, you go like this naturally. Okay, so I'm not saying that's what I'm saying metaphorically, you know,
right.
you just start to build up walls. So I
Definitely think, I felt like the same way in my first marriage. Like when I came out of it, I became more my true self.
for sure.
And I think that that's what's important about then you heal, and healing is a process, right? So that then the person that you end up with, that you can be your true self and you can say what you really want to say, and it doesn't affect them. They don't feel like you're directing something at them.
Sure.
Um,
And I
that,
think it takes a lot of boldness though. Like I think a lot of women that go through divorce, like they just feel like it's that scarlet D like on their freaking forehead. And I've had like certain people like DM me or something, and they're like, I appreciate that. You know, I was off social media for like 3 years because I just felt it just didn't feel right. And I didn't even know, it just wouldn't have been genuine, you know, if I was uploading anything. But I think that it's such an awesome tool now if it's coming from the right place, you know. But a lot of people will be like, I think that's awesome that you wrote about this or that you were so open about it. But like it took me a while to even get to this point. And I think that even right now, like sometimes I think about it and I'm like, okay, I'm about to talk like about Ben and I, like that was like a huge part of, and you knew us, Deanna, you know. So I mean, it's just sometimes it's just so it is so heavy. But I think, like I said, what I do now is like I give it that space. Like if it's feeling heavy on me one day, which some days it does, or when a certain Christmas song comes on, it does. Like, cause I'm just like, holy
yeah.
crap, like we had so much time and it was awesome, like the memories that we had. So I just like, I give it that what it needs, and I just like put it right over there. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't bear it anymore. Like I can't have that weight of it on me anymore, because like it was, I think the most hurtful thing for me was to like watch how quickly things shifted on his end, like how quickly it was so easy, or it seemed so easy, you know. So I think that like took me so long, and I was so wrapped up in that. But once I just like didn't think about how he did anything, and like I was like, how can I do this, you know? And that's how I deal with it. I take it, I give it energy or whatever I'm supposed to, and then I just like place it over there. And if it comes again, I try not to let it trigger me, but I just like take a second. And that helps in the current relationship that I'm in as well, because he's very patient and amazing. So if I'm like, I'm just having a moment and I just need to let you know, and this is this, and it takes a lot of understanding on his part as well. But it takes being bold is what I'm saying about how you're feeling
Yeah.
with your.
hmm Well, and Lindsay, I love this because I did know y'all together, and I know that y'all had some good times together, and I know it ended really
Good
bad.
and bad, 100%.
I know it ended really bad, and so I think it's important to remember the good, because that's what helps not harden you, and know that there was good, and sometimes we think like, did that really exist? But there is good. I mean, there is good, there was good, and it's okay to remember the good. And maybe not forget the bad, but don't harp on the bad. Don't harp on the way it ended. Because, at the end of the day, I mean, there are going to be bad things that happen to us.
For
And
sure. And I
we,
mean, and I think that's what I'm doing now, like in this season. I don't I don't try not to ever go back to that dark place. And there's certain things, if I ever see like a picture or something that like I haven't had enough. How you just said you went through your journals. Like I haven't done that. I didn't journal at that season, but I have a lot of notes on my phone where I journaled, and those are wild. And if I've ever like scrolled through trying to look for a password or something and I saw those, I'm like, it like takes my breath away. So that's where I know emotionally that I'm just not ready to revisit that dark spot. But no, there were in 10 years or almost 10 years, like there is more good than bad. 110%. I will stand that. Like one of my best friends always say, like your tapestry was already made. Like no one can wreck that. So what was already made is already there. So you can't try to burn that on fire, because those are our memories and they're where they are. But I mean, think like you said, sometimes when you just like think about it, you're like, did that happen? Because I mean, my life shifted. I am living in Florida now. Granted, I love it here. I'm so close to my parents, which has been a huge factor to my healing and just grounding, really. And being near my other studio, and then just being in Florida again, it does just feel right. But I've been here a year officially, and it's taken this entire year, I can say that wholeheartedly, up until this season right here talking to you today, for me to know that this is right.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
One full year of the ups and the downs, the obsessive behavior creeping back in, the mental shifts, the conscious effort, the habitual changes. I mean, it's been intense, but I mean, I'm grateful for it.
It's hard. I mean, it is hard. But I think time, yeah. I can't, it is funny because I look back over my life and some of the decisions I've made and the time span. And I mean, if somebody would have told me 15 years ago I would be married to Jeff Bezos, and I'd be living actually in the house that we live in that I had come to years before. I mean, it's craziness to me. And yet I know that this is where I'm supposed to be today.
No, and I think that's like the beauty of it all. Like the brokenness leads to the light, but I think it's just like in that time.
What do you do with that time? And that's why it's so important to help, I've had a health coach myself. I've had a life coach. I've had lots of people that I continuously work with, because it is important. If you want to get better, if you want to get get unstuck, like you said,
Yeah.
to truly, I mean, maybe some people can do it on their own, by reading books and being better and praying and doing different things. But I definitely think that we as health coaches, because I kind of say we're health coaches, life coaches, it's
Well, for sure. I think they're all
because our health and our life is all one thing, it's not just your health is over here and the rest of your life is here.
I mean, and I totally agree. I mean, I think that that's kind of how I felt for so long. And that's kind of the women that I talk to, and the women that I want to attract, the ones that literally feel stuck, or the ones that are kind of just in that hole, like I said, and they're laying in there and they don't actually mind it because it's like comfortable, like weirdly comfortable, and like really unhealthy and like probably really toxic, but it's like normal, and I think that making that next step is where I want to step in. And that's where health coaches, life coaches step in, because it's an unbiased support that gives you tools. But I mean, at the end of the day, Deanna, how you said most people do it alone, or some people could do it alone with reading. I mean, most of you are doing it. So we're giving you the tool. It'd be like, here's a hammer. Okay, it's not going to do you any good that's like the stupidest analogy, but you know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
you have to pick it up, you actually have to utilize it, and that takes time and that takes reprogramming. So I think it's some days I when I meet with all my clients, I literally, before I open the computer, I lay there, my hands there. I don't lay. I put my hands like on the table or wherever, and I'm just like, I just like take a breath, because I think we're all in that state of the short, choppy breaths, and we're all doing, and we're all busy, and there's all these things going on. And I think energy is so important. I think that everyone can pick up on energy, some better than others, but I think that everyone can pick up on it. So it's always I always want to create that space that's safe, that's calm, you know, so when they come in choppy breaths, spewing so much stuff, I can, you know, sort it, you know, and then we can kind of chop it down. And I think it takes support. I think it takes a canopy of support to do that. And I do think some people do it alone, and God bless them, but I don't think that they have to.
No, they
I
don't.
don't think they have to at all.
Okay, so you're taking clients on.
I am. I have 10 right now. Yes, but in January, I think I'm wanting to get some more in there. Yeah, I'm wanting to add on some more clients.
Yes. So, okay, so tell them how they would find you.
Yeah, so you can just go to enoughwellness.com, and from there you can see where you can go on and you can type in your information, and we can just do like a free consultation. So what I would do is send you a health form, and then from there you would fill it out, and then once you send it back, we would have an hour to chat, to look at it, and just to kind of dissect what's going on, you know. And then if it's a good fit, again, I think energy is super important. The reason you and I, Deanna, just have always been like, it's easy, you know, because our energies are in alignment. And I think sometimes it might not work. And I think that's the beauty of being honest with yourself. So I think on that first consultation, it's important to come with openness and just be like, okay, like this is kind of awkward, or this is like weird. Like, what is a life coach? Like, what do you even do? You know? And like, I think I always start, you know, with like kind of saying a little bit about my background, my circumstances, where I was, where I felt stuck, and then kind of how I've evolved to where I am. And that's what I would hope to do with them, with their particular circumstances. So from there, you can fill out that form. I get an email, and then I'll send those forms back to you. And then from there, we can coordinate and just chat. And the program that I'm offering right now is a 6-month program. So that's been extremely beneficial, because I feel like 3 is too short. That's not even, you know, but 6 is just, it gives a really good amount of time to break those habits that we were talking about. And I'm talking about mental habits. Like, I haven't even mentioned a lot of the nutritional habits, because I feel like they go hand in hand after your mental state's a little bit more leveled out and balanced.
Do you hear the snoring in the background? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm like obsessed with it. You know, I love dogs, so I don't care.
I'm like, y'all, I'm so sorry about the snoring in the background. My dogs
I
are
couldn't even hear right now. If they were, my little one would be already jumping on the table. My other one would be like clanking around. But you know, I love dogs. I think it's hilarious.
Well, Lindsay, thank you so much. Make sure to tell them where they can find you on Instagram.
Yeah, so you just go at LINCP, Lynn CP, but Lindsay Peirce is my name if you pull it up by that also. So yeah, I just kind of have one account through that. So
yep. Well, thank you again. I think that you are so insightful. I've always thought that about you. You know that I have. I've like just always been amazed by your wisdom at such a young age. Even when I first met you and you were just a baby, your wisdom and your light. And I love seeing you do this, because I know you are making such a difference with so many people.
Well, it feels right. And same to you. I love you. And you're such a light for so many too. So thank you so much for this opportunity to talk to you again and just explain a little bit more about what we do, and also to just open a platform to talk about what we talk about, and that it's okay for us to talk about these topics, you know?
Exactly.
I love
Y'all,
you.
thank you. I love you. Mwah. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Well and Worthy Life podcast. Don't forget, make sure you subscribe, make sure you rate and review. And if you love this podcast, especially this episode, be sure and share it on social media. Tag me, Deanna, at Well and Worthy Life, and Lindsay at LINCP, right, Lindsay?
Yeah.
And let us know, and we will share it with our followers. Y'all have an awesome day. Thanks, y'all.